Hello and welcome to the Anfield Wrap. Neil Atkinson and Harriet Prior with your latest transfer stat show. If you were eagle-eyed on YouTube last week, you'll have seen Neil already did a stat show on who were the main links last week, McAllister, Thuram and Kone.
They were the ones.
They were the ones, but there's so many more names coming out of our ears, so we're here to talk through a few of those and a few others we've been linked with as well. One of the key topics you were talking about last week is the changing role of Liverpool's midfielders, so go into that a bit more from a stats perspective.
Yeah, I think to sort of tell the story of it, I think it's important. First and foremost, we talked last week, I talked for a long time on my own, which is why it's a pleasure to have you, about the way in which the shape changes, but also the way in which roles have changed and what people expect. So, for instance, it's really hard to take a normal stats radar around fullback and say that's Trent Alexander-Arnold. That doesn't match what he's doing anymore. And there's a number of players like, how do you now sort of work out what you want from John Stones? We've changed massively the roles that we've got the footballers doing. So where I've started off with this is, if we take the first half pass network for the game against Tottenham, Liverpool scored 3 goals in that period, so you can say things were working pretty well. And from there you can see, for instance, Elliott and Salah are right on top of each other. Now, this isn't where they play all the football, but this is where the passes are coming and going from. Diaz and Jones are right on top of each other, and that's a massive change from what Liverpool used to have. So that's Liverpool this season. There's a lot of Tottenham in our future here. That's Liverpool this season against Tottenham. If we flick back as well, I've also got the starting 11 for the game against Leeds United. Again, it's a really good Liverpool performance, 6-1. Again, Jones and Jota are on top of each other this time, and Henderson's pulled the way out, and you can see it's almost like a back three: Robertson, Van Dijk and Konate, then Fabinho and Trent, and then there's almost 5 with the 2 midfielders doing quite unorthodox things. And the point I was making last week is that it's now hard to look at Curtis and say, well, what is it that you think Curtis Jones should be doing? Because he's almost at times playing a bit like a centre forward in a left wing position, and when we write down the formation beforehand, we put him in midfield in a 4-3-3. So what is it that we want the footballers to be doing, rather than the idea of, well, this is just what a centre mid does, and compare to that. So that's that one. So this goes all the way back to when we played Tottenham Hotspur, when we beat them 2-1 in the 18-19 season at home. And that one there, you can see it's a back 2. Then there's Robertson and Trent, because it was a tight game and they pushed us back a little bit. And then you've got the midfield 3 of Milner, Henderson and Wijnaldum. And then there's clearly the front 3. So that's Tottenham in 18-19, and that's the way we used to play. Yeah, that looked fair to you? Yeah,
definitely. So there's more versatility now, basically, in what they're expected to do and the role they're expected to play within the Liverpool side.
It looks that way. They didn't always do that. So here's the 4-2 against Burnley, the same season. And you can see there, Lallana, Mane and Firmino were all quite on top of each other, and that's not influenced by substitutions. So it's important not to say that Liverpool weren't tactically flexible back then, because they were. If you look now at the 18-19 season, it's astonishing how many games Shaqiri gets, how often Salah starts centre forward, especially in the first part of the season. So there was, it's not as simple as Liverpool just used to always play the same way.
Yeah.
That isn't true. And I think if we do that, firstly, we reduce how good that side was, but also we act as though the idea that Liverpool are now going to be more flexible feels like it's a new magic formula. Liverpool always had that. But if we look at this one, so this is from the 1920 season when they beat Tottenham at home, that's almost your classic of the way in which it was. Lovren and Van Dijk at the back, and then you get to see almost like a line of 5 of Robertson, Wijnaldum, Fabinho, Trent and Jordan in there, and then Mane, Firmino and Salah up top.
Has this versatility, do you think, changed the type of player we're going after this summer and in the transfer window?
So I think it does, because I think if you take what those players are about, those high sort of 8s to 10s, you now sort of do need them to be a bit close to being 10s. Then, if you think about Wijnaldum and Henderson, when they were playing alongside Fabinho in this shape as it was, one of the things, Wijnaldum gets a couple of very big games at number 6 and Henderson gets a lot of games at number 6. But you would never, Wijnaldum came with the reputation of being a number 10, but he very rarely got near that area of the pitch for Liverpool. The way we end the season with where Henderson and Jones are, they're so advanced that at times they are like number 10s, or more accurately just like pure attacking midfielders, but we need them to do the defensive work going the other way of number 8s and number 6s. So I think within all of that, you need to have this idea that we've got to have that versatility in one sense, but we also have got to remain secure. One of the things we do really well towards the end of the season is sides stop getting really good chances against us, because we're harder to counter against, because when we fall back into our shape, we're able to be rock solid and we're better at holding the opposition off until we get back into shape. But then what that means is that these footballers who are playing right the way up there in Jones and Henderson also then need to be able to do defensive work as well.
So should we talk a bit about the key attributes you think that are needed then for a midfielder coming into this Liverpool side, or even for the ones that already exist?
Yeah, so I think, Henderson, for me, what I want to talk about on this show is the Henderson role. Mm-hmm. So I think what we're asking Jones to do and Henderson to do, just like in the past when it used to be Wijnaldum and Henderson either side of Fabinho, they would be asked to do different things.
Yeah.
So Henderson and Wijnaldum had quite different responsibilities. Henderson was there to progress the ball quickly. He was there to force it a little bit more. Wijnaldum was there to take the pressure, to recycle the ball, to turn back in and to make runs. I think that Jones, as we talked about last week, is being asked to, as I said before, be a bit sturdier, hold the ball, and Henderson's there to move the ball. So what I pulled together was, and it's called Henderson Role 4 on the graphic because it took me that many goes to sort of work out what I wanted from it. But what I think you're therefore looking for from that position is someone who is capable of getting goals. So I've got at the top, I've got expected goals and expected goals per shot, but also someone who's capable of being part of winning the ball back. I haven't put tackles or interceptions in, and the reason why is because it doesn't particularly matter who wins the ball as long as the ball is won or how the ball is won. So I've got pressure regains, aggressive actions, ball recoveries and defensive actions per 90 in there. And then the next phase of this is what we're doing with the ball when we've got it. So open play, final third passes, passing percentage, through balls, and crossing percentage. So the idea of keeping the ball moving, keeping it moving and going to a Liverpool player and creating opportunities, ball retention, and the through balls creating opportunities and crosses. Because I think the other thing the player who plays next to Salah needs in that shape, to go all the way back to the start where we see where Elliott is next to Salah for the game against Tottenham, someone's got to be able to go outside Salah when Salah comes inside and be able to put a ball into the penalty area in an ideal world. Now, if you're not careful, as I've said a couple of times, you're not discussing like the perfect footballer. Also, you want him to get loads of goals, be brilliant at the press, win the ball back, keep it going, pass brilliantly, do through balls, cross it great, and have high XG assisted and on-ball value. And I think that Liverpool might end up sort of buying a couple of players possibly and having Henderson and Elliott possibly still there because it's like, well, what do we want more of in this position this day? But if we imagine that this is what it all is, so the graphic that you can see right now is Henderson on those metrics against the league average for players who play everywhere in midfield. So it's not just attacking midfielders, it's everywhere in midfield because you need the defensive metrics as well. And that's him over the course of the season. But what's interesting is when I click this, you get to see it in the last 10 games. So you can see he's gone up markedly for a number of those. He's gone up where aggressive actions are concerned. He's gone up, he stayed really high where ball recoveries are concerned. He's gone up on where open play passes are concerned. He's gone up on through balls quite a bit. He's gone up on crossing quite a bit, and he's gone up loads on XG assisted. He's gone from the 57th percentile to the 90th percentile, and he's closer to on-ball value. But what we get to see is where Henderson's especially weak, because ultimately, I don't know what you think, but Jordan, over the bar Jordan Henderson. You don't feel as though Jordan's about to score a goal a lot of the time. So his XG is absolutely, it's dreadful. It's 22nd percentile, 0.08 for those 10 games. And his XG per shot's really, really low. So you get to see those weaknesses as well and what we maybe need to get a bit more of.
So you can see with the strengths throughout the last kind of do you say this is the last 10 games?
This is the end of the season, from the Arsenal game onwards.
Yeah, how he's playing in a more advanced role, and that matches up to the average position networks earlier, how when he is more advanced, he does have the opportunity to assist more, to create more through balls, but actually the end product is still the area of his game that you'd say needs work, and maybe, like you mentioned, you can't get a footballer that can do it all, and that's his weakness.
Yeah, but also, you want to try and get a footballer who can do it all, or more, you want to understand what this is about. Talking like this, no matter what way you do the radars, it's always going to have some degree of limitation. And on the last show, and I think it's a really important point, you've been doing more and more stuff with StatsBomb. I know you've done a couple of sessions with them, and when you speak to people at StatsBomb, I know you spoke to Lily, who's great. Like, what they don't do is act like they've got all the answers to football, because if they did, then football would be finished and it'd be over. For me, why I like this and thinking like this, and we're going to come on in a few minutes to talk about both players from the past or current players, and also players that we've been linked to, because I think it throws open, not so much, for me it's about asking better questions, and for me it's about sort of beginning to say, all right, what is the sort of footballer Liverpool are looking for and why, rather than the idea of either A, this football is brilliant or this football is rubbish, because that's just not true when you're dealing with the highest level of footballer, but more the idea of whether or not there are some fits that are better than others, where those strengths and weaknesses are. Ask the question as to why a certain player isn't good at that, and then from there we're able to sort of get ourselves into a situation where we can maybe be able to better see what Liverpool's plan is about over the course of this summer.
Well, we are going to come on and talk about some of those names, but first of all, we have been doing so much transfer content on the Anfield Wrap. We've got transfers everywhere, haven't we? Wherever you look, we've got transfers, and here is John Gibbons and Paul Gorse talking about Levi Colwill.
Of all the ones that have been linked, is there a link that seems the strongest to you, or maybe just one that gets you more excited than some of the others?
Yeah, I don't know if it's stronger or whatever, but I know that they do like Levi Colwill at Chelsea, I guess, isn't he? But there's a lot of hoops to jump through there. He's obviously wanted by Brighton. He's on loan at Chelsea. Would Chelsea countenance a sale to Liverpool? He's 20 years of age, played 16 times for Brighton last season in the Premier League. I wonder whether Liverpool might look to maybe give him another couple of years, see how he develops. But certainly as they're looking to kind of tweak this system and maybe be playing with the back three at times last season, he's a left-sided centre-back, so he'd fit in well there, wouldn't he, on the left with Konate and Van Dijk, on the other side. But I think Liverpool generally, in terms of the centre-back look, is more of a profile. Young defenders with a lot of potential and a lot of time on the side to grow into that potential, maybe similar to a Joe Gomez all those years ago.
So you mentioned before the historic players that we've been linked with that might look interesting with your algorithm that you've made, the Neil Atkinson algorithm. So talk us through some of those. Yeah,
the first one I really liked, and when I did the Curtis Jones thing, everyone said, it's a small sample. So I want to be clear, it's a small sample, but the point about this again isn't to have answers, it's just to have a laugh. So if you look at every game Lallana plays from the start of August 2018 in the league for Liverpool up until 2020, I think in a number of ways Liverpool wouldn't be averse to if they could just buy Adam Lallana at the age of 24 again. I don't think that'd be too much what they're against. But what's interesting is where his shortcomings are. So here, his XG per shot through the roof. His pressure regains are exceptional. His aggressive actions are exceptional. His ball recoveries are really good. Defensive actions, different class. Open play, final third passes, 94th percentile. Passing percentage, great, 85th percentile. And then you see this. So Adam Lallana in the league in this period of time from literally August 2018 until July because of COVID 2020 doesn't play a single through ball. Doesn't play one through ball for Liverpool. And if you think about the sort of player Adam Lallana is, you think
he's the creative spark,
and he'd be shooting them all over the place, but he doesn't play a single through ball for Liverpool because, and this is back to the idea of the style. Back then, what were we trying to do with those three midfielders? A lot of it was about you keep the ball ticking, you feed players, they run at people, and we go to wide areas. And that's, for me, that's really interesting. We've just seen before when we talked about Henderson, since he's moved this role, the through balls have gone up that you get from him. Also, when we talk about Henderson in the past, when you talk about a midfielder, you'd say, well, does he do deep progressions? But if he's playing where he is and he's getting on the ball higher because Trent's doing the deep progressions and Fabinho is and Konate should be, that's less relevant. And that's what we used to be about from those midfielders. Now it's more about through balls. And you see the absence of that there. No, not loads of crosses, which you'd think you'd see from there as well. And therefore, by extension, his XG assisted and his on-ball value is relatively low. So that's Lallana. And then I've looked at a couple of players who are currently in the Premier League. Do you want to see them?
Yeah, show us.
So Ødegaard's dead interesting. So
how have you chosen these, by the way?
My own brain.
Okay.
So I just
people you thought would be interesting on the radar.
Yeah, what I thought was, so Ødegaard's really good because Arsenal play that 4-3-3, but they have Zinchenko Wild off the left. Ben White plays right-hand side at centre-back. They have other footballers around who support the idea that Ødegaard's creative with the three in front, and we're talking here about who's creative with the players in front. So Ødegaard's dead interesting, and he profiles really strongly off this radar that I've created. So his XG is higher than normal. His XG per shot isn't, but he's solid enough for pressure regains, solid at aggressive actions, all right for ball recoveries, but then he comes into his own. Really strong on open play, final third passes, 93rd percentile, good passing percentage, loads of through balls, 93rd percentile, loads of creativity from him there. And then you keep going. He doesn't put crosses in, and this is, so when Ødegaard plays this side, one of the things about him when he comes off the right is he's left-footed. Yep. So of course, and this is, if we're going to talk about, for instance, could Elliott do this? The answer is yes, but you're not going to get crosses. He's not going to go outside Salah instinctively.
I feel like looking at this radar, this is the kind of midfielder we lacked at least last season, and then you start, we were trying to play like someone who could do all of the things Ødegaard does really well.
Yeah, apart from the crosses. Yeah. So apart from that, he's got pretty much everything. He's solid enough in the defensive areas. It's not outstanding, but he's got goals. He's got real on-ball value in everything that he does.
What does that mean? Can I ask? Yeah, on-ball value.
So it's an amalgamation of the way in which players pass, dribble, and carry the ball. So, for instance, Kevin De Bruyne and Trent Alexander-Arnold have huge on-ball value in terms of going forward.
Right.
Some footballers can have a negative on-ball value. That doesn't mean they're not able to be part of a functioning team. The idea of recycling the ball and keeping it moving is really important. But more the idea of if players have got exceptional on-ball value and you expect them to have, then it's this idea that through an amalgam of things, they're going to move you up the pitch in a massive way. It can be dribbles, it can be carries. Dribbles is when you take a player on. Carries is just carrying the ball. And then there's the idea of how you pass the ball and progress the ball. So Liverpool's consistent player across the last 4 or 5 years for on-ball value is Trent Alexander-Arnold. City's is Kevin De Bruyne.
Right, can we go on to some players that we have been linked with then?
Well, do you Paquetá first from a West Ham point of view? So I've got one more. Paquetá's interesting because he went to West Ham as an attacking midfielder and has been used a little bit deeper because they've had a bit of a crisis. So he's not got loads of the stuff around goal, but he's got everything else. You know, it's really high pressure regains, really high aggressive actions, good ball recoveries, good defensive actions, open play final passes better than average, passing percentage, and again through balls really high. Now that's in part because of how West Ham play. Part of what they want to do is they want to release Antonio, they want to release Bowen, they want to release whoever's left hand side. That tends to change a little bit, but in there as well, and he's got good on-ball value. My point here to include Paquetá is that he's exactly the sort of footballer Liverpool could have bought last summer. And, you know, Ødegaard's a different thing. He comes from Madrid on loan, but Paquetá was available. You know, West Ham get him last summer. And I think that as part of this, thinking about the whole of the summer and the whole of the outlook around transfers, is there's just a lot of good footballers, and I don't mean that to be sort of trite or state the obvious. There's lots of footballers who are knocking round who not just can improve Liverpool, but I would argue can improve practically any Premier League side or any Premier League squad. You know, I think there's still a couple of questions around City's strength in depth, which is a mad thing to say because they might win a treble, because they've got really fit players on top of the idea that they've got really, really good ones and they've been managed really well. But you know, ultimately, there's still, you know, they've only really got 5 or 6 midfielders, and they have lads who dip in because they're really well coached. But players like Paquetá exist, they're knocking round, so we haven't got to act as though trying to find these footballers is impossible, but it may well be that he's not brilliant in front of goal.
Yeah. And are the players we've been linked with strong across the radar, would you say, or are we looking at different players to fulfil different areas of defensive and attacking capabilities?
So I love this one. This is Mason Mount, and I know he might go to United, so you've been doing TikToks. I've been doing TikToks.
I've been enjoying TikToks.
So
I feel very young and modern, you know.
Well, you are very young and modern. One of my favourite TikToks is, you know, the one with the girl where she's dancing and crying at the same time. Have you ever seen that one?
I wasn't featured in that one.
No, I'm not saying that's you. And she's doing this dance, and she's doing a dance routine for TikTok, and she's crying her eyes out at the same time. And that's sort of me looking at this for Mason Mount if he goes to Man United.
Yeah.
Because you can see there, you know, his XG is really high, his XG per shot less. So on the sample size, I've got this off everything Mason Mount has done playing football since 2019. You know, it's a huge 116 games, let's be clear, because he's moved around so much and played under different managers.
Yeah.
But you can see, great in the press, good on aggressive actions, average on ball recoveries, but that's fine, does defensive actions. You know, he's played games properly in attack in this period, but great open play fine off their passes, good passing percentage, finds through balls, can cross, he's got it all. And then if we look at, for instance, the positions he played in the 21-22 season for Chelsea, we're talking about right centre mid, right attacking midfield, right wing. That's literally what we're talking about, and that's where StatsBomb has him playing for Chelsea, and that's what we're saying we'd like a footballer to be able to do. I really want Liverpool to find a way to still do Mason Mount. I think he's really strong and really interesting.
Can you show us someone that we could feasibly get? Because at the moment that doesn't look too feasible.
No, so this Coop Miners has been linked with us all season from Atalanta, and I just sort of think, if you look at this, he looks to me just to be like a little bit more like a defensive player. And now that we've done McAllister, who we know can do some of everything, but I feel like Liverpool do need to have the answer to who is it as an attacking midfielder and what's the why of that. So you can see that he's not a bad footballer at all, but even that, and again, it's back to this idea that players are asked to do different things. He doesn't profile even pop more than Henderson does, at least some of these areas, if you see what I mean. So that's someone we have been linked with. And again, when you look at this, where he's been playing for Atalanta, it's left-hand side of defensive midfield or right-hand side of defensive midfield. He has done bits and pieces higher up the pitch. But I think that Liverpool, I'd love them to get one of these that is a specialist as an attacking midfielder, but who can also do midfield. What I don't want is for Liverpool to end up with 3 lads who are defensive midfielders who can also do attacking midfield.
So you want a specialist in the 8 position, basically?
In the 8 or just off the right. I think you can have a bit of both. So the next one we were linked with is Kepa and Thuram. So on this radar, Kepa, again, just to me, mild concern. He profiles for what he's been doing at Nice, just a little bit more like an all-round midfielder. You know, you can see it there. Passing percentage is good. Through balls is dead interesting, I think, for Kepa. The thing I did last week said he's more through balls than anyone else who plays for Nice. You know, players who got, haven't necessarily hit their ceilings, and Liverpool could when we talk about Wijnaldum, for instance, he was playing 10 and Liverpool do it differently. It might be that Liverpool love the Thuram skill set, but then feel as though, okay, but we'd use him differently. So it's worth bearing in mind, and I'm not writing anyone off.
Doesn't look like he's getting us the goals, though.
But he doesn't look like he's kicking it in the back of the net.
No.
And I think if you're playing, and this is where, again, to talk, if you think you're going to play Diaz, Gakpo and Salah as a front three, I don't know if Gakpo's 20 goals, league goals a season in this league. Diaz, I don't know if he's 20 league goals a season in this league. We can say we know Salah is, but if that's the case, if you're going to at least have that three on the pitch at times, half the time or a third of the time, I like Jota a lot, and I think we should be using him as much as we can. But I think you need Curtis, who I think does look like 10 goals. But part of the reason why we don't like Henderson there is because he doesn't look like 10 goals.
Yeah.
I think you need the idea that whoever it is who plays there does at least look like there's a chance that he could grow into getting goals.
Yeah, would he not come in as more of a 6 though, Thuram?
So that's what I wonder. So again, if you see this here, left-hand side, it's defensive midfielder and left centre midfielder. I wonder whether or not Liverpool might be looking at Kone or Thuram off the basis that Kone might now currently be more of a traditional number 6, but Liverpool might have a plan with Thuram.
Really good in a tackle, Kone.
Yeah, brilliant in the tackle. All the numbers say that. But I wonder if Liverpool might think, we're looking at Thuram here, and I think Liverpool have either got to be able to use him higher or use him deeper if we're going to continue with the current shape, unless we're going to go back to what we were doing years ago. But that doesn't seem likely now with everything that's gone on with Trent. Does it seem likely to you?
No, it doesn't seem likely. It feels like he's going to stay in that position, and then you're going to want someone who can either play alongside him or play in a more advanced role. And then are these players fitting into that, I guess?
So that's where the Thuram thing for me is, like, I don't quite know where it's going to fit and settle. But it might well be that Liverpool feel as though he can adapt position, as I say, either more aggressively or sit a little bit deeper. The left-hand side of defensive midfield role is interesting to me on this, because Fabinho's been playing from the left a little bit more, so I wonder if that's in there. This is the lad I like.
Is he really tall?
He is 6'2".
Okay.
Dominic Szoboszlai. I think I've said that right. Did I say that well enough?
I think you've done well, yeah.
Go on, George. Szoboszlai. George says Szoboszlai. George's nailed it for us. I like this. I like Szoboszlai because I like the positions he's already taken up for a couple of seasons playing at Leipzig. He's got, if you look at that there, it's saying he's played 10 of his games pretty much at right-hand side of the attacking midfielder, but he's actually got a further 11 at right mid and right wing. And if you think about this idea of a player who can go outside of Salah, and then I've got something else in my mind as well that I'm not averse to, and there is also an AFCON next season, someone who could play in a couple of areas when Salah doesn't play. So Szoboszlai, say it again, George. Szoboszlai, brilliant stuff. We have him there for pronunciations and camera work. He's got this background as an attacking midfielder in general. He's done midfieldy bits, as we can see, but what he is first and foremost is, for me, a right-hand sided attacker who can go on the outside, and that makes him different to Ødegaard. So this is the radar. The radar is mildly, I'd still like a little bit more XG, if we're honest, in there. But if you go through the full hit there, I've got a number that's, pressure regain's really, really strong. Aggressive action's really, really strong. Ball recovery strong. Open play final third strong. Passing strong. Through balls and crossing are both in there as well. And XG assisted. Now, listen, players, when they play with better players, you can change and you might get more opportunities. His XG might be low because Leipzig aren't using him in a way that gets him that many opportunities. He's got a fair few goals. He has hit double figures on a couple of occasions. So I feel as though someone like that, I'd like to see Liverpool move towards. Not necessarily that player. I've mentioned Mason Mount as well. This lad might move. He might go to Newcastle. He's been strongly linked with Newcastle. But I think Liverpool could do with, at the minute, I think we've only got genuinely Harvey Elliott or maybe Gakpo, I'd say, was just an attacking midfielder. That's it. And Gakpo's being used in a different area predominantly. I think Liverpool, and I thought it last summer as well, when there was a lot of talk about midfield, and in the end they could have done with getting, a new 6 and a new 10. But I think that Liverpool went into the season lacking an attacking midfielder. I think they need someone who's an attacking midfielder first, who we then adapt and not go the other way over and over again, because we need to make sure we constantly got creativity and goals.
Yeah, this radar suggests he's someone that's good at bringing other players in as well and making sure that they're scoring the goals. And if you've got someone like Salah and whoever else is going to be playing alongside him on the pitch, someone that can just be there but right behind them and doing the attacking creativity groundwork, it's no bad thing.
No bad thing.
Is that all your stats?
Yeah.
What a lovely transfer.
Did we do all right?
We did all right, I think. Yeah, we did all right. We'll be back again with another one of those soon. As I mentioned, you can join us on YouTube or subscribe to the Anfield Wrap. Download the app. You can get some free tokens and enjoy all of our content. We've been speaking to quite literally everyone about quite literally every person we've been linked with. It's been a lovely time, so do come and join us. Thanks for watching.